Awakening Sorc in PvP. Well, let me ask you, do you like scythes? Do you like iframes? Do you like dressing like an absolute stripper? And most importantly, do you like scythes? Well, then this might be the class for you, and this might be the guide you need. Quickstart on Awakening Sorc for the people that have a low attention span. For PvP, we always take Grim Reaper Core. The other ones are mostly used in PvE or just not worth having. For the Rabams, we take Ignition, Engulfing, and Shadow Wave. For skill add-ons, just copy mine. It's what I use in duels and in AOS, and it seems to work. And these are the skills we put on the hotbar. Feel free to just copy-paste from mine. Later on in the guide, I'll go more in-depth, and that's all you need to know to just jump straight in. Alright, let's start off by talking about skills, meaning mostly which ones to lock and which ones to put on your hotbars. As you can see on the screen, there's not really that many skills you need to lock. It's mostly a personal preference thing. I lock Abyssal Flame and Mark of Shadows to not accidentally hit them and get CC'd. As you can see in the clip currently on screen, the difference between having Storming Crow locked and unlocked is that you don't have the super armor effect when you have it locked, right? You can just hold the buttons and it'll permanently iframe. There is a way to permanently iframe while having Storming Crow unlocked, which is by putting the WW movement on a hotkey, right, on a keybind. That way you can still do it, but with having it locked, there's just less to think about. Another benefit to having it unlocked is that the super armor part is actually a CC. So something to keep in mind, play around with it a bit, and find what works best for you. Next up, skills we want to put on the hotbar. Take a moment, take a look at the screen, make sure those are on your hotbar, and I'll run you through why each one is on there, and I'll give a short demonstration. Sinister Omen can only be used from the Quickslots, that's why we put it on there. It's a super armor and it leaves a slowing area. Shadow Wave is a quick, ranged float, can only be used from the hotbar. Absolute Darkness is the quickest way to go from Awakening to Pre-Awakening. You want to combine it with an iframe or a different skill, because it is an unprotected skill and you might get caught using it. You might not use this a lot when you're starting out, but as you get more skilled at playing Awakening Sorc, you might find a lot of use for this skill. Dark Tendrils allows you to go from Awakening to Pre-Awakening with super armor, and it has good lifesteal. Soul Reaper allows you a quick swap from Pre-Awakening to Awakening with super armor. Also, it allows you to use the skill without actually using it as a flow, so you can just use it standalone. Signs of Agony is a long-range, slow-moving stun. Once you've learned the Magnus skill, you can only use it from the quick slot. A lot of people sleep on this skill, but if you use it well, you can get a lot of value out of it. Dark Trade is a fast, unprotected skill that consumes a little bit of your max HP, and it will fill up your shards, which we'll get into in a bit. So, how do shards work? There's a few ways to use them. First off, if you press Q, you will get an AP buff. You can consume 10, 20, or 30 shards, depending on how many you have. For every 10 you consume, you will get an AP buff, right? So 10 shards is 10 AP, 20 is 20 AP, and 30 is 30 AP. Another way to use shards is by enhancing abilities. For example, if during Grim Reaper's Judgment you press spacebar, it will add extra damage and you will consume shards. What this does is also refresh your AP buff. The final way to use shards is by iframing. If you are out of stamina, you can consume shards to iframe. Keep in mind that this does not refresh your AP buff though. Alright, so this part of the video I am recording in a bit of a different way. The previous part was all pre-recorded footage with a voiceover. This one I will be like commentating as I play along. It's a bit easier to show things that I want to show this way. So this is the movement section. I'll quickly go over why or how to move on Sorc. A lot of people think Sorc's movement is very limited, and compared to some classes it is, but I don't think it's actually as slow as some people make it out to be. A good exercise to do for when you're starting out on Sorc is trying to go to that wall in the back from these stairs in Battle Arena. And if you can do that with your skills, you try to go back, and you just keep going back and forth until it's fluid, right? So how that would look is something like this. I'm doing it slow now, but you want to just keep using skills with iframes in between. Even preferably protected skills, right? But it's kind of like that. You want to weave in the iframes between all your movement abilities. The easiest way to do that is to put the forward iframe on a mouse button, for example. So you can start off, for example, with this one, linger it a bit into this one, and then you just kind of keep it going like that, right? Sometimes you might have to linger the forward guard a bit, right? Honestly, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I'm not too great at this, but yeah, generally that's how you want to move. You want to make use of your awakening skills and your pre-awakening skills, and just keep weaving in the iframes, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it, actually. That's just how you want to move on Awakening Sorc. Small addition to what I was saying before, there's some other movement stuff you can use. For example, if you've got a bit of high ground going, right, you can do a jump into an iframe, and then, for example, WRMB, if you're starting in pre-awakening, to cover a lot of ground pretty quickly, right? That only works if you're on a bit of an elevation. Alternatively, you can just do multiple iframes in the air, but keep in mind that first of all, you need to be in pre-awakening to do multiple. Second, only the first one in a row will be iframe. The rest is unprotected. So you can go like that. As you see, the second one was not protected. The limit you can do is 3, but I need to get up a bit higher to do 3. Right. Maybe it'll work from here, but I'm not sure. See? 3. After the third one, you will get put into a falling animation, and you'll just hit the ground. Okay, let's get into everyone's favorite mechanic of Black Desert Online, mouse movement. There's a couple of skills that Sorc has that you can mouse move. The first one is WF, right? You can kind of go in a zigzag motion. Second one is WE, in Awakening, to flip around your front guard, right? You can angle it to a different side. I don't use that one a lot. I do use this one a lot, right? Because you can follow it up SRMB to get a cheeky CC off. I forgot to move my mouse there. Oops. I don't think mouse movement is very necessary for Sorc, especially if you fuck it up like I'm doing right now. That's also going in the guide. Fuck ups are a part of life, and you need to learn to play with those. See what I mean? It's like a zigzag, right? That's one thing you can mouse move. WE is one you can mouse move. Right? Kinda go sideways. Flip your front guard. Shift Z, right? Engulfing Shadow. It's also mouse movable, but I don't personally think there's any point in that. Yeah. Final thing to add, it's not really movement related, but it is a mouse move one. So, Dark Tendrils, the backness skill, you can spin it around. That's pretty much all the mouse movement there is on Sorc. Easy. Okay, let's quickly talk about some catches that you can do. You can we'll go over some bread and butter ones. There's a lot of catches we can do. Like, I guess technically you could count just Grim Reapering someone as a catch, but I'm not going to go that deep into it. It's more like some skills that combo off each other nicely, which we'll be getting into. So the first one is WF into SRMB. Right? That's what most Sorcs go for. It's very simple. It's 360 degrees around you. A bit more difficult one is WF into Shift LMB. As you can see, I fucked it up there. Let's try that again. So, again, I missed. Doesn't matter. Basically, if you do hit it, right, it's a stiffen. And then you can follow it up with like a WF or Shift X, Shift F, etc. Right? One thing to do with this one, if someone's doing a front guard, you can either go on the side of them, right, by just turning your camera during the dash, or you can go behind them by flipping your camera really quickly. This takes some practice. As you saw just now, I was fucking it up a couple of times as well on a stationary target. Very embarrassing. I did it again there. I recommend practicing that a lot, and maybe you'll fuck up a little bit less than I do. Another few easy catches that you can do is, for example, in pre-awakening, if you're iframing around someone, right, you try and get their back with a Shift F. It's a pretty quick protected float. Alternatively, you could do, when you're iframing around someone, you do a Shift X and then instantly iframe again. Shift X is unprotected, but if you cancel it, you'll almost leave no gap, right? It is really quick, as you can see there. Careful with iframing after it too quick, because you can cancel the skill entirely if you do that. Now let's take a look at everyone's favorite Sorc skill, Blade of Darkness. Blade of Darkness shoots a projectile that, if it hits, is a knockback, as you can see. Aside from the knockback, it spawns 3 fidget spinners. These can be pulled to a target by pressing Shift Space, which will cause them to also do a knockback. The way the targeting works is there's 2 ways. So you can either put your crosshair on something and then Shift Space. This one always takes priority. Whatever your crosshair is on will always get targeted. The second way is by tagging something with some damage, and then that locks the blades onto them. This can also be used to sniff a V in Arena of Solaire, for example, because even if someone turns invisible or turns invulnerable, the blades will still know where they are. As you can see in the clip currently on screen, you need to spawn the blades before the target Vs, so they are locked onto someone, and then you can Shift Space and have them follow. I recommend waiting a little bit for people to gain distance, so the blades actually go in the right direction. One thing to keep in mind is if something else hits you after you've locked on the blades, it will override the targeting, so they will go to the person that hit you instead of the person you hit. Buffs and debuffs play an important role in PvP. Getting as tiny as possible advantage over your opponent is actually huge. An important buff that you should try to keep up at all times is Shift Q for the casting speed. Then we've got WE, or in pre-awakening WRMB, and Shift LMB for a critical hits buff. Shift F in Awakening for an accuracy buff. WRMB in Awakening to reduce someone's magic DP. And finally, SRMB in Awakening to reduce someone's evasion. Now, to finish up the guide, I would like to get into some general useful tips and tricks for Awakening Sorc. and then we'll wrap it up. So, first one would be the way Nightmare works. So, Nightmare is when you press F in Awakening, right? You go into this iframe. There's actually a few ways you can use it. You can RMB onto a target, and you pop out behind them and stiffen them, right? The cooldown is a bit long, so bear with me. There's also, hold on. You can press F, and then you can LMB, and you kind of pop out where you are, right? If you press F again, you can cast Requiem, which is a 1 minute cooldown, but it allows you to go back into Nightmare, okay? Now, back in the day, it used to be that if you were in Nightmare, you would appear on the minimap. That is no longer the case. You are completely invisible. If you wish to exit Nightmare where you are, you press spacebar, and you just pop out. Very easy. A lot of new Sorcs make the mistake of relying heavily on Nightmare to catch people. I recommend not doing that because a lot of people will abuse you if you Nightmare. Right? It's kind of a predictable skill, so to say. One cool trick you can do with Nightmare, which I will show you in 10 seconds, is you can actually fly backwards. So imagine you're fighting, right, and you're kind of getting fucked. You can actually tap S and F, right, really quickly, and it shoots you backwards. So it's kind of like an easy disengage. You can also freely move around in Nightmare. You can enter it back with Requiem, right? You can actually gain quite a lot of distance, as you can see, with just Nightmare. So, although it is a good engagement tool, it is also really good for disengages. That could be useful during like node wars, for example, right? Especially since they changed it. Careful with elevation because you can get the you can't do this right now message, and then you're fucked. But yeah. The second tip is about Kartian Nightmare, which is also known as Crows. If you hold Shift E, you will spam this ability, right? You can WF and then E again, and it will recast itself, right? Keep in mind, this is a fully super armor skill. You can, however, use it to bait grabs. If you're holding it and you iframe backwards, right, you instantly turn the super armor into an iframe. While you're doing that, you can SRMB to catch potential grabbers. So one more time. If you're holding Kartian Nightmare, you iframe backwards, and you SRMB. That is one of the easiest baits for grabs. If you are in Awakening holding block, and you want to shoot a Dream of Doom, right, your pre-awakened ranged ability, you can use Absolute Darkness into Shift E into WRMB, right, to instantly shoot and follow. Other way to use this, if you're okay, so this is the instant cast Dream of Doom, right? If I hold this, right, it's fully charged and it will be a knockdown. If I WRMB now, I front guard dash with the orb, right, and it will throw it. So you kind of land with the CC. That's a really good engage. Keep in mind though, the charging up is unprotected. If you want to do it instant, make sure the instant version is off cooldown. Final tip, there is a lot of skills that cancel into Blades of Darkness. So, for example, you can, once it's off cooldown, do A or D into left mouse button and shoot it, right? That is one of the longer unprotected ones. You could alternatively do Shift F into Shift RMB. Then we also have Shift Q into Shift RMB. Another one we have is Soul Reaper into Shift RMB. You might be getting that there are a lot of cancels you can do on Sorc. I recommend trying them out. I will not go into it in this guide much further because it's kind of getting too long, right? And this is meant to be a beginner's guide. I hope people will get a good head start with learning Sorc. I might do an advanced guide in the future, but for now I think this is enough to help you get started on your journey as an awakening Sorc. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Yeah, that's about it. I hope you learned something. I hope you had a good time. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.